Welcome to the 347th commencement exercises at Harvard University. These festival rites held again in the venerable precincts of the Tercentenary Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm Dudley Hirschbach, here again with Diana Eck, Professor of Comparative Religions and Indian Studies and Chair of the Study of Religion. Once more, Diana, we have a high above the courtside view of this great spectacle.
We sure do. Yeah. It's great. We see people assembled here in Harvard Yard, which changes its name for this day alone to the Tercentenary Theater. Since 1936, these festival rites of commencement have been held here, and people have assembled. The graduate school graduates are coming in to be seated. The undergraduates have formed their files through which the faculty is processing, and the faculty is almost beginning its procession up onto the stage at the front of the theater.
The procession is organized so that two lines of the seniors border the procession. First, you have the President's Party, which of course consists of the Board of Overseers and the corporation and the honored guests for the occasion, followed by faculty, alumni, classes. For the first time this year, Diana, Harvard has an organized 75th reunion.
That's extraordinary. And of course, you know, the 25th, 50th, 75th now reunion classes processing. Here you begin to see the procession of the faculty through the ranks of seniors. We've got sort of the best view of all, watching on television and simultaneously sitting here above courtside in the Tercentenary Theater in Harvard Yard.
I want to emphasize this 75th reunion because, as I say, it is the first occasion in which there's been an organized 75th. There's always been one or two people from the 75th class, but this year there are no less than 14 from the class of 1923, and Albert Gordon of that class organized this. They're all 96 or older.
That's really wonderful. I came by the outside of Harvard Yard this morning. This is one day in which Harvard Yard is really closed, and its 16 gates are closed to anyone who doesn't have a ticket, but I think there are 28,000 people who have tickets to get in today, either by virtue of their academic robes. There's Peter Gomes leading the procession of clergy, or the parents, the wonderful multitude of parents that have assembled here in Harvard Yard. They were lined up at the gates as early as 6:30, 7 o'clock this morning.
It's always very touching to see the older alumni classes processing between the rows of shiny young faces.
Yes. And these faculty that you see now in so many different forms of academic dress, it's one of those days in which basically we dress up in all of the academic regalia. It was described by one writer as a flock of iridescent birds, and we do, in some sense, in our multitude, look like a flock of iridescent birds, and crimson for Harvard and blue for Yale. And with all of the ermine and fur from various British universities.
Now we see on our screens some of the honorary degree recipients coming through. I see Mary Robinson, who will be the commencement speaker this afternoon, former president of Ireland, now Commissioner for Human Rights with the United Nations.
We know, sitting here on the platform, who the honorary degree recipients are, and in fact, if anyone has received a Gazette this morning or a Crimson, they're also published there, but we don't say anything about it until they actually receive their honorary degrees, not on air. The one we do know, of course, as you said, is Mary Robinson, who will be speaking this afternoon.
That's the only honorary degree announced beforehand. The others are kept by tradition secret till the very day, and of course the Harvard Crimson, the undergraduate paper, goes to enormous lengths to try to discover. Every year makes speculations, rarely guesses right.
The shoe of John Harvard's statue.
Yeah.
With the faculty marching by. Now, the undergraduates I was marching with this morning tipped their hats to John Harvard's statue. I'm not seeing the faculty do that. I don't know if it's so much a tradition.
Well, this procession takes quite a while because there are 12 graduate schools. There are, of course, 12 undergraduate houses with each their crop of seniors. Takes lots of organization. It's organized chaos, as they like to say. But by 10 a.m., all will be in order, and then the sheriff of Middlesex County will call the proceedings to order. The first events will be speeches all by students. They've traditional Latin disquisition, and then an undergraduate English disquisition, followed by a graduate English speech, and then the ceremony of bestowing degrees to first the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, then the other professional schools, finally the undergraduates and the honorary degrees. But this is really only part of the whole ceremony. All during the previous days this week, there have been reunion events. In fact, a total of 170 symposia and gatherings of all sorts, clam bakes, concerts, lots of parties, scheduled and unscheduled.
It really is. It's described in the flyers on everyone's seat this morning as an academic festival, and it really is. The ingathering of you might say, the members of this community who have previously graduated, their reunion classes, and the initiation, in a sense, of these new initiands, the undergraduates into the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women, and all of them dressed in that uniform black of initiates, you might say, before these rites of initiation. We have several guests who are going to be with us this morning. A graduate of the law school who is finishing her degree today, an undergraduate, and a retiring professor. And we will interview them during the course of these next few minutes before the commencement exercises begin at 10 o'clock.
They are representative of the more than 6,000 degree recipients that we are celebrating today. Now, of course, the audience is enormous. There are about 21,000 chairs in the Tercenary Theater. 28,000 tickets are given out. We have now joining us our first interviewee, in fact, a pair of interviewees. This is the first time we will have interviewed mother and daughter. This is Brenda Jarrell and Rebecca Jarrell. Brenda getting her law degree today. Rebecca getting
her mother
mommy degree.
Good morning. So you say hi.
Hi.
This is also Brenda Jarrell's 10th reunion since she graduated from Harvard in 1988. A very wet and rainy day, as I remember.
Brenda, tell us a little bit about yourself. You graduated in 1988 and then have gone on to do a PhD since then.
That's right. I actually, when people ask me what year I graduated from Harvard, I say it's a trick question because I actually came in sophomore standing. So officially I graduated in 87, but I stayed a year and got a master's degree in chemistry, and that was in 88. And then I went and got a PhD in molecular biology from University of California at San Francisco. And then since I hadn't had quite enough school yet, I ended up coming back to the law school. After I got my PhD, I actually sort of switched careers and went into patent law. And I've been working in a law firm downtown all through law school, in fact. I worked half-time, and in my spare time I thought I'd have a kid.
How has this worked, being a patent lawyer and a mother and a law student all at the same time? You must have some hair-raising tales of that adventure.
Yeah, well, I don't get a lot of sleep. And my family likes to joke that there was sort of one defining moment of my 3 lives. I had to fly to Texas, actually, to interview a potential expert witness for a case for work. And I was still nursing the baby and trying to get my homework done. So I spent about an hour and a half in the bathroom on the airplane, pumping milk, reading my homework, cramped down on my way to an interview. And that was sort of the moment that captured my life for the last 3 years.
That is a defining moment in some ways of the many lives that you and I imagine some of your other classmates juggle in this tremendous accomplishment of getting through law school.
Well, I think in some ways actually to have a job and even a child helps in law school, because a lot of the education at law school is really real life practical stuff. And if you have some real life experiences and have some framework into which you can put the information, it helps. It also helps a lot to come home to a big smile.
I'll bet it does.
It's not so bad. And she's good with highlighters.
I can see. Brenda, it says on your CV that you came to Harvard at 16 as an undergraduate, and that you spent your high school years living in Courier House. Now, how did that happen?
Actually, my parents were housemasters of Courier House, so I've been at Harvard off and on since I was 14.
Was that during the time you were in Courier House as a housemaster, Dudley, by
Coincidentally,
any chance?
Coincidence it was, indeed, yes.
A tremendous coincidence.
Yes, Professor Hirschbach also happens to be Rebecca's grandfather.
That's right, a very proud grandfather, and she has been instructing us all in Proto-Hungarian.
Want to
I
say
don't
hi?
know if she might say any of it right now,
Can you
but
say
I
hi?
have it
Do you
on
want to
good
say
authority
something?
that it's Proto-Hungarian.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Can you say
Can I
bye-bye?
keep my my highlighter?
Good.
Say bye-bye.
She likes to wave bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Come on. You can do it. Not
She's
on
really
television,
cute.
apparently.
Yes, she is.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Oh, my pleasure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations to you, Dudley. This is
Thank
quite
you.
an accomplishment.
Say bye-bye to
Certainly
Grampy.
is, yeah.
Our next guest is going to be one of the class marshals of the class of 1998. Her name is Kavita Kacholia, and there are, I believe, 8 class marshals, and Kavita and one of her classmates have been elected the first marshals to lead their class in commencement. And as soon as she can make her way up the ladder, we're going to have a few words with Kavita Kacholia. Let me just say a word about this as an initiation rite while we're waiting for her to come, and that is there's a sense in which all of these rites of initiation, as the anthropologist Arnold von Gennep wrote many years ago in a book, Rites of Passage, have 3 phases to them. They're rites of separation, in which the initiates, you might say, are separated from the world that they have known, and separated in some sense, taking on this uniform dress that we see them in today. Then there are rites of transition in which they actually attain a new status. And in a way, the processions that are so much a part of Harvard commencement are the archetypal rites of transition, moving from place to place in processions with drummers and bagpipers and all that we see. And finally, rites of incorporation, which are being incorporated into the larger world into which they have, in which they'll join. And those rites of incorporation include all of these spreads that will take place this afternoon under awnings and tents all over the university. The spreads being the commencement luncheons. And here you see some of those initiands right now. Graduates of the class of 1998, their white crow's feet, their mortarboards. So let's welcome Kavita Kacholia.
Kavita and her classmates will soon be welcomed into the company of educated men and women. I had wanted to remark that Brenda has not only been welcomed into the ancient and universal company of scholars with a PhD, but to the still more ancient and universal company of motherhood, a great education for everyone. Here is Kavita.
Hi.
Welcome. It's great to see you this morning. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good to see you all also. A little bit nerve-wracking right now, thinking that we're about to be graduates of this place, but surviving.
I heard Peter Gomes tell you in the chapel this morning, don't look back. And I'm sure that you'll be looking back actually for quite a while.
Oh, definitely. These
But-
past 4 years have just been most incredible, most full of memories and
But taking part in this ceremony, you can also look forward because you see all these reunion classes.
yes.
They always say that the big thing for any Harvard graduate is not commencement. It's the 25th reunion, and then the 50th, and then the 75th.
Oh, they look great. The marshals in their top hats, they look so...
Now, what does it mean for you to be a marshal, Kavita? There are 8 of you who are marshals. You and one of your classmates are first marshals. And what do you do? What responsibilities come with that?
Sure. Well, I think the most important responsibility is just to really keep the class of 1998 together, to really keep them connected with each other, to really have that bond survive for years to come. I think that's the most special part of it, just to really feel like this is a family that's graduating. And we have a lot of specific responsibilities. Class day yesterday, we had organized a lot of different speakers, different awards. We plan all kinds of senior events so that the senior spring is really special for all. Anything from 98 days of partying to the senior soiree to champagne brunch. So we do a lot of different planning, but really I think the most special part of it is to really keep that bond for the class of 1998, to come back in years to come and as alums to enjoy.
That's right.
What lies ahead for you?
Well, I'm heading off to med school, going back to University of Chicago, going back home actually, so my parents are really happy. And I'm really excited. But I have a summer still, so I'm going to Europe, more short term, enjoying myself there.
Kavita, I wonder if you would say a word about, I know that you're a science major, but I know you primarily because of your interest in South Asia and the fact that during your time at Harvard, you actually started a Harvard tradition that I don't think we've had before, which is the celebration of Diwali. Say just a word about that.
Sure. Well, Diwali is the New Year's for India and South Asian cultures. My freshman year here, I called home on Diwali to wish my parents and family Happy New Year, and I really missed it. I really realized that that's such a special day for us, and we didn't celebrate it at Harvard, and I really thought that it would be nice to celebrate it here with friends and kind of start our own tradition, and so that's exactly what happened. I had a really small celebration freshman year, and since then every year I've done a similar celebration, but every year it's gotten bigger, more people, more things that we've done, more traditions. So it's been really, really a great memory of my years here.
It's wonderful.
And hopefully it'll continue. I think it will, which is nice.
Great traditions have a habit of doing that. This one, for example, it was the very first commencement not until 1642, even though, as you and all Harvard people know, Harvard was founded in 1636. They didn't have any graduates till then, and they only had 10 then.
This is such a celebration. My God, look out into the yard. It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I didn't know they could pack in so many people into here. But it is really, I mean, if you look at everyone's expressions out there, everyone is glowing. Everyone is so excited to be here today. But yet it's such an emotional day too.
Of course
there's so much excitement, but there's so much emotion. It is a glorious day, definitely.
Kavita, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, the rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, Diana, both you and I have had the pleasure of having Kavita in our very different courses, although some people would say chemistry is a branch of religion too.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, we go together pretty well, but she took chemistry her freshman year from Dudley, and my literature and arts course on Hindu myth, image, and pilgrimage, I think last year. Our next guest is a professor who is retiring from the School of Divinity today, from the Faculty of Divinity, Professor Helmut Kester. And Helmut, welcome. It's good to see you here.
Delighted to see you.
Thank you for inviting me up for
our little tree house, as we call it.
We've got a great view here. So we can see both on the television and,
you
and
can
out
see
into
the whole
yard.
thing.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Helmut, you've been at the Divinity School for 40 years.
That's right, since 1958. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, In a way, it went rather fast. I thought it would be a longer time, but it went rather fast because it was always interesting. I've never been bored since I came here, and it's been exciting. And
Helmut is a professor of New Testament studies, and there is a real sense in which the whole field of New Testament studies has been radically transformed in the last 40 years. Say just a word about the big things that you've seen happen.
Well, they have two great opportunities. One was the discovery in the middle of the century of the Coptic Gnostic Library, and was an opportunity, but because I was here at Harvard, I could really, with graduate students and colleagues, take an active role in the study and publication of these over 50 hitherto unknown writings. Most prominent, which most people know, is the Gospel of Thomas, of course.
Yes.
For which in which I participated in the final publication, the final critical publication, wrote the introduction for it. With Elaine Pagels, did the dialogue of the Savior from the Nag Hammadi finds, and trained our students in Coptic, and so in the final edition, about 35 collaborators, of more than a third were Harvard professors and students, and that was a very, very important opportunity for research, and it opens up whole new areas of the study of early Christianity. And since I've also been teaching history of ancient Christianity up to the 4th century, adds a completely new dimension hitherto unknown.
You've taken many Harvard groups on tours, alumni tours of the ancient Mediterranean, including these early Christian sites.
That's my second specialty that I have been able to develop here at Harvard, namely to study the non-literary materials, archaeological materials from the world of the New Testament. And I did not go to Palestine as everybody else goes to the footsteps of Jesus, but consciously chose to study those sites in which the first Christian communities developed in the Aegean, Ephesus, Corinth, Thessaloniki, Philippi, and have developed regular studies, seminars with students, mostly graduate students. Even though I'm retiring, I've been invited to do such seminars once more next spring to continue to do this, and to go with Harvard alumni tours. That 2 weeks we'll be leaving again for a Harvard alumni tour to the Aegean.
Well, it has been a remarkable career, and I can say when the PBS showed its series this spring, From Jesus to Christ, I think a good portion of those participants were students of Helmut Kester, or certainly of the Harvard Divinity School graduate program.
Half of the 12 people who participated were Harvard professors and students.
Congratulations.
Well,
have a wonderful day. The rest of it, I know it's a busy day. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
To talk to you.
We have about 15 minutes until the sheriff of Middlesex County. There are some of our religion graduates. Now, those two women, Rebecca Gould and Tracy Hucks, are both PhDs in the Committee on the Study of Religion. I'm very proud of both of them.
They certainly look very happy.
I could also say both of those PhDs have really great jobs, one at Middlebury and one at Haverford.
Oh, that's always.
And that's always, of course, the worry about the scarlet, crimson-robed PhDs is the job market. But I think in many fields of the humanities, social sciences, certainly in the sciences, Harvard PhDs are doing very well.
And they are creating whole new lines, whole new professions and sub-professions as they go out into the world. Some of our viewers may know that Harvard, as we mentioned earlier, founded in 1636, is celebrating its 362nd year, and yet this is our 347th commencement. Now, one factor, of course, was the first one wasn't held, as we mentioned, until 1642, because there was no one to commence. But many other times, about 15 times, the event was not held either because of war, like the American Revolution, or other great upsets, smallpox epidemics. But the most frequent reason for its cancellation was riotous behavior. And in fact, that's why the proceedings will be opened by the sheriff of Middlesex County and closed by the sheriff of Suffolk County.
Just to keep order.
Oh yes.
And of course, when the sheriff steps up to tap his staff on the stage and says, "Pray, give us order," that comes from those days of riotous behavior, I suppose, Dudley.
It was a bacchanalia. For 3 or 4 days before they had any organized alumni reunions, there were all these wild occasions. About 100 years ago, for example, if we'd looked out here, we would have seen a live element. We would have seen people dressed as mermaids and mummies. There would have been a display of two-headed calves. Oh, that's a fascinating mortarboard.
Are those computer chips?
That's right. It may well be someone getting a degree in computer science or someone launching a software company. But on this occasion I was mentioning, but beyond the display of two-headed calves, there was a archery contest between the Indians of Natick and Harvard students with bow and arrows. And needless to say, the Indians won handily.
There are some remarkable students in this graduating class of 1998. The recipient of the Jonathan Fay Prize at Radcliffe, Rebecca Kiley, who is one of the graduates in the honors concentration in Afro-American Studies. There is Laura Lee Summer, who also pioneered in starting a Harvard women's wrestling team and is nationally ranked as a wrestler. There's Allison Feaster, who is a women's basketball star.
Yes, great star.
Tremendous game that upset over Stanford at
My
the
alma mater,
NCAA championships did Harvard proud. Some remarkable students. And also some very remarkable changes in the faculty. Yesterday I attended a reception at the African American Studies Department to celebrate the fact that both Cornell West and William Julius Wilson have become university professors in the last 2 weeks.
Of course, this brings many, many special speakers as well. Elizabeth Dole is speaking at the Kennedy School, Hillary Clinton at the Medical School, Janet Reno tomorrow at the Radcliffe festivities, Elliot Richardson at the Law School, especially apt in this moment when there's so much focus on a special prosecutor. And of course, Elliot Richardson was Attorney General who resigned in the Saturday Night Massacre 25 years ago, refusing to fire Archibald Cox at Mr. Nixon's direction. So there's all sorts of history.
There are members of the 25th reunion class that have returned this year include Peter Galbraith, who has been a diplomat and ambassador in the last few years to Croatia, and James Engel, who is a professor of English here, Andrew Del Banco, professor of English at Columbia, and Tony Lewis in his 50th reunion class. Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, is in her 25th reunion here as well. From our seat, we see the stage virtually filled with the faculty, with the members of the corporation, the members of the Board of Overseers, and the yard, the Tercentenary Theater, jam-packed with graduates, some of them standing on their chairs to try to get a better view of what's happening. There you can see the great tent under which the faculty is seated, a tent that was made for the 350th anniversary and is really a work of art in itself. It will keep the faculty dry on any occasion, even if everyone else gets soaked.
Well,
luckily, there are no rain plans needed for commencement today, and in fact, there are no rain plans for commencement anymore. Since 1968, rain or shine, commencement takes place here.
Oh yeah, but of course, if it does pour rain, as it did 10 years ago, it's quite a scene. The whole theater is filled with umbrellas, each one pouring rain onto the neighbor. But the most famous occasion in which it poured rain was in 1936 during the tercentenary celebrations, in which the speaker was none other than Franklin D. Roosevelt. And he looked out on the crowd suffering under this downpour, and he said, "And they say it's I who soak the rich." But thanks to the excellence of our divinity school, we rarely have rain on commencement at Harvard.
Well, I don't know if that has anything to do with the Divinity School, but the Divinity School is an excellent school. It's one of the smallest of the graduate schools if you look at the numbers of degrees conferred today. But it confers degrees from Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, and its own doctorate, the THD, the Doctorate of Theology. Now you see some of our PhDs standing on their chairs, crimson robes with those blue crow's feet of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. There are chants going on. I'm not sure you can hear them at home, but all over this yard, groups of graduates from various houses, from various schools, beginning to celebrate in all sorts of ways under this canopy of trees in Harvard Yard. Once the meeting is called to order, there's something else that's really very interesting about this event, and that is that there's almost nothing extemporaneous said. It truly is a ritual, and we have printed with us here something called the Form for Conferring of Degrees. And that's all written out very carefully. This is not sort of ad hoc remarks about what a lovely day it is, but it does follow a ritual form, and there's a very clear sense in which this is one of the oldest public rituals in the United States, these festival rites.
Well, in addition to the beautifully crafted words that are each season repeated, we see in the Tercentenary Theater lovely banners hanging from the trees showing the coat of arms of the various graduate schools, the different Harvard undergraduate houses. It's a wonderfully colorful scene.
You just saw the green balloons, and I think that is coming from the medical school, somehow taking advantage of the green crow's feet of the medical faculty. Am I mistaken? I've never seen this particular way of emphasizing the colors of the various schools before, but I think that's what it might be.
I've seen purple balloons, pink balloons.
Purple balloons would be for the law school, we'd have to say. The other thing that's extremely interesting as a ritual matter here is that the degrees are actually conferred by voice. They're conferred by the authority vested in Neil Rudenstein, the president of the university. And at the moment he confers those degrees, they are indeed conferred. They don't have to wait to receive the diploma. The diploma is basically an extra, a written form of the degree already conferred. And for many years, diplomas were not awarded. You could get one if you wanted to buy one, but it wasn't an ordinary part of the conferring of degrees.
Well, the diplomas actually are received in separate ceremonies. The undergraduates will go back to their houses, and each house has its own commencement exercise right after lunch. And likewise, the law students will go over to law school, and right after lunch there'll be a ceremony there. As I mentioned, Elliot Richardson will be speaking. The Graduate School of Arts and Science will retire to Sanders Theater, where all the department chairmen will be present to hand over degrees to new PhDs from their own department. So we have this whole series of small ceremonies that follow in the afternoon. And it's a very, very nice way to do it. And of course, the only feasible way when you have 6,000 people receiving diplomas of one sort or another.
One of the amazing things about this day is that there's a sense in which this is the only time that the entire university gathers. When you say, what is Harvard University? There are so many professional schools and the undergraduate college, but on this day alone at commencement in this place in the Tercentenary Theater, the university gathers itself together and, in a sense, acts out who it is. That's what ritual life is about, enacting our identity, so to speak. And here, the university gathers for an enactment of what Harvard University is.
And I think it reinforces also this sense of belonging to a very large family. For example, Harvard has 255,000 living alumni. 45,000 of them live in other countries.
Here you see Richard Hunt, the Marshal of the university, being informed by Fred Abernathy and Bill Hutchison, his associates, that the faculty procession has been completed and presumably that everything is in order to begin. I think Richard Hunt will give the signal when the ceremonies are to start.
He will give the signal to the sheriff of Middlesex County, who will come forth with a ceremonial mace, tap it, and announce that the proceedings will come to order.
You can
Very
see
often the sheriff then giggles and the crowd all laughs. This wonderful blend of solemnity and gaiety that I like.
the tolling of the bells. And mind you, at the end of the ceremony, there will also be the pealing of bells from all over Cambridge.
All the churches in Cambridge, some 21 of them, take part in this tintintabulation that will follow just before 12 o'clock.
Crowd beginning to quiet. Those standing on their chairs beginning to sit down.
Mr. Sheriff, pray give us order.
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, this meeting is in order.
You certainly did that in style. That was James DiPaolo, Sheriff of Middlesex County.
The chaplain of the day will open the exercises with prayer.
Almighty God, whose Spirit inspired the founders of this college in Cambridge, grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the living of these days. Endow with vision our overseers, enrich with insight our faculty, enlighten with wisdom our students, inspire with magnanimity our alumni. Deliver us, O God, in our callings, from politics without principle, from commerce without morality, from education without character, from pleasure without conscience, from feelings without commitment, from faith without works. Thus, Lord, we will still give thee thanks that this thy world is incomplete, that challenge calls our marshaled ranks, that work awaits our hands and feet, that thou hast not yet finished man, that we are in the building still, as friends who share the Maker's plan, as heirs who know the Creator's will. Amen.
the University Provost.
Good morning, and welcome to today's commencement. These exercises mark the culmination of the university's 362nd year. In the course of this day, the university will confer 6,236 degrees, including more than 1,500 bachelor's degrees and 9 honorary degrees. Today's graduates will join more than 284,000 Harvard alumni living in the United States and in countries around the world. Harvard University takes great pride in the academic distinction of each and every one of today's degree candidates. Today's commencement exercises will be conducted by the University Marshal.
Latin salutatory, xenophobia, candidate for degree of Bachelor of Arts, Lisa Marie Mignoni.
Lisa Mignoni is from Lowell House, the first woman in a very long time to be the Latin orator.
She's going to call to order by banging 2 plates together.
Salvete omnes, professores et decani, cari familiares, denique cuncti soci, qui ad summum gradum disciplinarum tantarum nunc pervenistis, et quoniam rite incipiundum prius in vocavos non musas quae per multas quaestiones cumulatas, et renunciationes ex operibus juistis, sed te numen semper praesens nihili Rudensteini. Et te genium praeclarum lindae Wilsonis. Sic ad nute coitus ut laude sanctissimae almae matris non nequiquam canam. Quamquam graviores et serviae res nobis discerendae sunt patres conscripti. Hodie praeterio illam miserrima machinam fortuitae, pestem perniciemque, quae domus domino personarum affliguntur. Praeterio quod domus Adamae non diutius erit regina mirabilium et gustum inusitatorum. Non diutius potentes copias cabotienses in certaminibus intermoralis trememus. Loeliani tandem. Qui semper occasionem cognoscunt et carpunt, tot victorias in praemio Roriensi non diutius reportabunt. Hodie ut dico haec omnia praeterio, nam hodie nos qui sumus ultimi ante fortuitatorum, gaudeamus nunc est vivendum. Cras rebus gravioribus erit tractandum. Ab hinc 4 annos facti sumus elegantissimae in orbe terrarum sodalitatis. Simulacque Harvardiana nos optimos et clarissimos nuntiavit, dorso quadrigarum emplastra insignita adhibuimus. Sic nos ad gloriam praedestinavemus, non 4 annis peractis, erces apud illud brill exhaustis. Per multis pizis apud tamlo media nocte deveratis. Nos qui nudi et clemantes cucurimus equi propter quandam cupiditatem convivi, lautissimis togis cincti sumus, nunc imitimor, ut omnis orbis terrarum, ut speramus, nos noscat, et laudet hic est praeclaudissimum, et politissimum secumen. Haec Harvardiana. Haec verba nos ubique sequentur, nunquam deficiemus, nunquam flemur, nam sumus Harvardiani. Considerate quibus modis miris tot victorias reporta verimus. Olim moles Eliadae, nostrum facilam viam ad gloriam, prohibere temptaverant. Ter foeda capita subleva verunt, ter turbia sceptra torserunt, ter satori furerunt. Vae victis, ielenses delendi sunt. Sic clamavant rex timpona tribarum Harvardianorum. Quid ut maiores illem manum alabalum melosque elephantos turpes ad portas Cartaginis repullunt, sic nostri bellatores nobilissimi et optimi sane exportere hederoso, illos pusillos canis ex novo porto vastaverunt. Nunc portaiani clausae sunt, nunc stat victor Harvardiana. Et vos Radcliffeenses. Mementote quae citis, ab hinquinque vigentianos, ab ultimis tractibus quadranguli matres nostae descenderunt, ad sedes sanctissimae, sedes sapientiae et scientiae ad propatulum Harvardianum, sed nostrae haud quoquam pares illis bacis frentis smithiensis nec trucibus sirenis velis liensibus cum patribus hic habitantibus se conjuncturunt. Nostrae advenerunt ut musae omnibus Harvardianis occultum ignem inspirantes. Non cruenta clutum nestra, non terpissima medusa, sed hodie formosa bellatrix Xena emittit nos ad morniam viam, ad Capitoliam, etiam ad hortum Madisonianum. Res ergo gerite, feminae fortes, feminae sapientes, et resonabunt atria dux femina facti, femina Radcliffeensis, nec non femina Harvardiana. Sed nunquam omitamos nostros fratres Harvardianos. Post omnem Radcliffeensem bonum stat Harvardianus bonus. Nos omnes qui pedem viges centum invias diversas ponimus laete et feliciter progrediamini. Et tu formosa Harvardiana, ave atque vale.
Extraordinary, her classmates to their feet. It really was a marvelous presentation.
Beautifully done. And of course, our audience should know that the undergraduates are supplied with an English translation, so their parents and grandparents are very impressed when they laugh at the right moment.
Senior English address. Like me, candidate for degree of Bachelor of Arts, David Brunton.
Until 1944, the whole exercises were in Latin.
Good morning, President Rudenstein, faculty, family, friends, and classmates. I came to Harvard from a town of about 3,000 people in Washington State. I suppose about 2,000 995 were white. I had heard Harvard would be a bit more diverse and anxiously awaited that change. In fact, the only request I put on my rooming application was for a group which would reflect that diversity as much as possible. Thinking back, I always laugh a little bit about what Derek must have put on his rooming application. Somehow I seriously doubt he wrote that he'd like to be paired with a country white boy who had never seen a person with skin so black as his. Yet there we were in Wigglesworth. I was the last of the 4 roommates to arrive on campus. The guys had already picked their rooms. Derek and I were to room together. God was looking out for me that day, as Derek's friendship provided some much-needed solid ground during those first few months. I followed him around a lot at first. Negotiating a small town is all about who you know. In Goldendale, that's the town I grew up in, I knew everybody. At Harvard, I knew nobody. Derek didn't really know anyone either, but he seemed to be remedying that problem a little more quickly than I. Besides, he was used to being the new kid, since he had lived in 4 countries during the time that I had gone to school with the same 90 people. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, I was Derek's sidekick. Well, more accurately, I was Derek's tag-along. Derek always sat at the black table at the freshman union, which meant that I did too. We both joined the Kumbah Singers. Well, he joined the Kumbah Singers, then I did. By the time our first year started to wind down, we shared the same group of friends, and most of them were black. Recently, Derek was looking at a picture of a Kumbah concert from that year, in which we were all wearing African garb. "You look like a Peace Corps volunteer, Dave." We all had a good laugh. Skipping ahead 3 years to senior thesis time, Derek and I are living together with 3 other guys that we know from Kumbah. Derek's senior thesis is an original musical which has taken him nearly 3 years to write. Together with Harvard's Black Community and Student Theater, he's producing for a late January run. There are 2 white characters in the cast of 40. One is really racist, and the other is a nice guy, though maybe a little conflicted. I jump at the chance to audition, and of course, land the part of the nice white cop. I'm demoted when they can't find anyone else to be the racist. Imagine that, nobody wanting to be a racist police officer in a cast of 40 black people. They find somebody else who's willing to be the nice cop, and the cast is complete, with me as Jimmy, the racist. During the first meeting of the cast, a professional actress was brought in to help us get into character. I admit I was a bit skeptical as to how this black woman was going to help me be a better racist. Still, I came to the front when it was my turn and did my best to approach her with an open mind. That beautiful actress reached down inside me and touched my heart in the place that I despise most. She stood there, whispering in my ear so that only I could hear, and brought up something that was made out of hate. Then she told me to look at one of my best friends, and with all the force of that hatred, to call her a name that no black person would want to hear me say. I had nightmares through the entire run of the musical. I got comments from fellow cast members and friends who watched the show that my performance was a little too realistic for their comfort. It was certainly too realistic for mine. The nightmares stopped only after the show ended its run. The lyrics of the closing song of Derek's musical say, I need you to see what it means to be like me. That day, when I let a black woman look within me, I learned something about myself. She found something I had never expected anyone to see, not because I had hidden it so well, but because I didn't even know it was there. But something else also happened when she looked inside me in search of hatred. She found a love that she had not expected to see and learned something as well. Standing up here and seeing myriad colors in the faces of this graduating class shows that Harvard has given us all a small step in the right direction. But neither Harvard nor I can take the next step for you. But what I can do is share with you a moment in my time here that you might see what inspires me to take that next step, however difficult or unsure it may be. I'm standing here not so that I can tell you what to do or how to solve the problem of race, but simply so that you can see a little of what it means to be like me. Congratulations and Godspeed.
Throughout this address, he's referred to Derek Ashong, a graduate in Afro-American Studies whose thesis was entitled Songs We Can't Sing, a musical production based on identity issues. It won one of the Thomas Temple Hoops Prizes this year.
Graduate English Address. Candidate for degree of Doctor of Laws, William Seaton Griffin.
Mr. President, friends of Harvard University, and fellow graduates, on my way to Harvard Law School, I decided to share my last couple of days of freedom with my grandfather. Now, he in turn decided to share a couple of things with me. The first was a certified check for a large sum of money. And the second was a piece of advice. Of course, being the Generation Xer that I am, I hope that my receipt of the check wasn't contingent upon my acceptance of the advice. But as it turns out, my fears were unfounded because the advice was, don't forget who you are, because it's who you are that got you where you are. You see, grandfather is an old-fashioned man, and he is about as far geographically and in many ways metaphysically as one could be from Harvard. He embodies both the poetics and the paradox of the American South. He is an intellectual in rural Texas. While he is an educator by training, he is also in his community a de facto country lawyer, an ad hoc financial advisor, and even a stand-in priest for those in need of emergency confession. So I knew grandfather was onto something, especially when I discovered a little more than 100 years ago, one of Harvard's favorite sons, W.E.B. Du Bois, stood in this position, giving this very address at his commencement. And there he proclaimed that the real task of the Harvard graduate is not simply to have knowledge of scholarship, but rather have knowledge of himself. The same holds true today. From the moment we all matriculated, we have become extensions of the Harvard brand. The requisite apostrophe 98 was permanently affixed to our names. We were given some truncated version of these names at our division.harvard.edu as email addresses. And a friend visiting from a rival institution points out that we even eat our meals in dining halls with trays and cups emblazoned with Harvard logos, lest we forget where, or in some subliminal way, who we are. This Harvard branding has seeped into the public consciousness. The LexisNexis research database contains a record of over 10,000 print articles in the last 3 years alone, which refer to Harvard alumni as Harvard educated, or my favorite, Harvard trained. So, given Harvard's healthy sense of itself as an institution, it's not hard to see how you could lose yourself in Harvard's identity. It almost happened to me. I arrived on campus over 1,000 days ago now, as I suspect many of you did, very confident in myself. I prided myself on how unstereotypically Harvard I am. I am not a legacy. My family is not wealthy yet. And I even have the largest rap music collection this side of the Mississippi. How could I, of all people, lose myself in Harvard? Well, it began innocently enough. As I started to regard the United Nations-like procession of global leaders to campus as regular Harvard events, rather than a chance to refine my own views of world affairs. I began to lose myself in Harvard's identity as I rooted for my dream team law professor to win the trial of the century without examining my own views of justice. It took a lunch table debate with an alumnus when the alum just so happens to be a sitting Supreme Court justice to make me realize that I'm in a place that could have a very profound effect on who I am. And even those of us who come from the most humble of stations in society and hold the most populist of views have to concede that once we enter those gates, we are not in Kansas anymore. So I have the highest honor at the 347th Harvard Commencement of giving each of you the advice given to me by my grandfather. Always remember who you are, because it's who you are that got you where you are. So as we look around Tercentenary Theater, realize that we're getting a sneak preview of future leaders in every field of human endeavor. And the commencement finally serves as proof that those other divisions that we hear about actually do exist. And although we were decentralized as students, there's no denying the connection between us at this moment as human beings. We all share common human emotions, curious anxiety, joy, perhaps some embarrassment at the actions of family members today, and above all, a shared sense of privilege conferred along with our diplomas. So as we use this privilege to access the more sequestered spaces of society, we must avoid the temptation to hide smugly in our Harvard clubs and behind our Harvard degrees. Because it is from this point forward that we can prove that we're more than just the spring 1998 collection of Harvard PhDs, MEDs, MPPs, MBAs, MDs, BAs, AAs, and JDs. Because we can have every confidence that the Harvard brand, education, and training will ensure that we will be able to define our age over the coming decades. But more importantly, it is the pre-Harvard values instilled in us by people of character like my grandfather, and let us hope, refined at Harvard, that give us the chance to define ourselves as individual human beings every day. Thank you and congratulations.
I'm always struck by how wise it is to have the students deliver the talks. I don't think any other university I know of does it this way.
They really are extraordinary this year. They compete for these honors.
And they receive excellent coaching and delivery.
This Randall Thompson piece, Alleluia, is traditional at Harvard commencements, as is all of the music that we hear today. Psalm 78 a bit later on also.
These addresses by selected candidates for ordinary degrees being ended, the deans of the several departments will now present to the president and fellows and to the Board of Overseers, in the favoring presence of the friends here assembled, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. The Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers, in the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First will come the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Next, the candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts, of Science, of Engineering, and of Forest Science will be presented. Third will come the candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of the exercises, the seniors in Harvard College and Radcliffe College, who are candidates for the first degree in arts or in science, will stand before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by vote of the faculty, fulfilled the requirements for the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all of these men and women, trusting that they will forever wisely enjoy the freedoms of their education while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands. They will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they have been enrolled.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will rise.
Appropriately, they have the seat of honor closest to the stage. 433 candidates for the PhD this year.
The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Dean Christoph Wohl.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have devoted themselves to the rigorous pursuit of advanced study, have attained high distinction, and have made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me and recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you, women and men of learning, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars and entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations.
The PhDs, first to receive their degrees, and perhaps the ones for whom this degree has taken longest to achieve. It often takes as many as 6 years, sometimes more, to complete a PhD here at Harvard.
Candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts, Master of Science, Master of Engineering, and Master in Forest Science will rise.
More than 300 master's degrees in arts and science this year.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have taken the first commendable step of advanced study in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts, Master of Science, Master of Engineering, or Master in Forest Science, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study.
Candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies will rise.
It's about 460 this year.
The Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension, I have the honor to present to you these students, candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Associate of Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, or Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies, and admit you to the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women.
Extension School, one of the most vibrant schools at Harvard, people from all walks of life, and that was Dean Michael Schneegel.
Psalm 78.
The Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Medicine and by its authority, I have the honor to report today that two groups of candidates in the field of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the requirements of the faculty for the degrees for which they are recommended. The first group will be introduced to you by the dean responsible for the program in which they are enrolled.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, and Master of Medical Sciences will rise.
121 in that category.
The Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
This is Dean Bruce Donoff.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has devoted either 5 or 4 years to the study of dental medicine, or at least 3 years to postdoctoral studies aimed at improving health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, or Master of Medical Sciences, and declare that you are qualified for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Medicine will rise.
There'll be 165 new doctors.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has worked hard and well to prepare for a life of learning and service in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Medicine and declare that as physicians, you are ready to engage in an honorable and a merciful calling.
Doctors. They were introduced by the new Dean of the Medical School, Dean Joseph Martin.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology will rise.
All told, 175, about the same number as doctors.
Yes.
The Dean of the Faculty of Divinity.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Divinity, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has devoted at least 2 years to theological studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology, and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith and to help in shaping the shared values of our broader society.
That was Dean Ronald Thiemann of the Harvard Divinity School. And among these are 12 THDs who have spent as much time as a PhD in receiving that doctorate.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, and Doctor of Juridical Science will rise.
All told, 686 graduates of the law school this year.
This will be Dean Robert Clark.
The Dean of the Faculty of Law.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has devoted at least 3 years to legal studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, or Doctor of Juridical Science, and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and application of those wise restraints that make us free.
The law students are waving handcuffs this year. They're making someone else
They're
less
throwing
free.
handcuffs, too. Not sure quite what that means.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Business Administration.
This is the largest and noisiest
Doctor
group,
of Business
863.
Administration will rise.
This is Dean Kim Clark. It's a very noisy
the Dean
bunch.
of the Faculty of Business Administration.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, I have the honor to present to you these men and women who have developed their leadership skills and understanding of the art of general management through the study of business administration.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master in Business Administration or Doctor of Business Administration, and testify that you appear to be exceptionally ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society.
You might as well have said, despite appearances, you are presumably ready.
Dean Clark of the business school has his hands full, I can tell.
The lawyers should put on those handcuffs.
Candidates for the several degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning, and design will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Design.
200 candidates in.
Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College,
Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Design, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning or design studies, or for the degree Doctor of Design.
Dean Peter Rowe.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the degree for which your studies have qualified you, and testify to your competence effectively to shape the very space in which we live.
Candidates for the degrees of Master and Doctor of Education will rise.
578 masters and 47 doctorates in education.
They'll be introduced by Dean Jerry Murphy of the School of Education.
The Dean of the Faculty of Education.
Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who in partnership with us have prepared themselves to serve as educators.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the master's or doctor's degree in education and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of young people everywhere throughout our society.
Candidates for the several degrees in public health will rise.
They'll be introduced by Acting Dean Jim Ware.
356, of whom 53 are doctorates.
The Dean of the Faculty of Public Health.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom is qualified for a master's degree or doctor's degree in public health.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees in public health for which your studies have well qualified you, and declare that you are ready to advance the welfare of peoples everywhere by the prevention of disease and the promotion of health.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Public Administration, Master in Public Policy, Master in City and Regional Planning, Doctor of Public Administration, and Doctor of Public Policy will rise.
These are from the Kennedy School, 544 all told.
They'll be introduced by Dean Joseph Nye.
The Dean of the Faculty of Government.
Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard, Mr. President and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Government, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom is qualified to provide leadership in public service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree for which your studies have qualified you, and testify that you are well prepared to offer leadership in the quest for enlightened public policy and effective public administration throughout the world.
Now there'll be an anthem, "Oh, Clap Your Hands," by Ralph Vaughan Williams. Very appropriate choice.
Following this, we'll have the conferral of the bachelor's degrees.
And then the dessert course is the honorary degrees.
Yes.
The chosen representatives of the class of 1998, together with candidates for those degrees summa cum laude will draw near. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or of Science will rise.
Class of 1998 on its feet, and the chosen representatives are those who are the 8 class marshals and also those who have received their degrees summa cum laude. Drawing near, that means coming forward and being congratulated in person by the Dean, Harry Lewis, and Linda Wilson, President of Radcliffe College.
67 summas this year. It's a great distinction to graduate summa from Harvard. President Rudenstein and President Wilson draw very near and speak to many of the students.
The President of Radcliffe College.
Mr. President, members, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As President of Radcliffe College, I have the honor of presenting these women as representatives of those qualified for degrees in the arts or in science.
The Dean of Harvard College.
This is Harry Lewis.
Mr. President, fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Harvard College, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance learning, to promote understanding, and to serve society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I believe I shall confer.
He's teasing them a little bit.
On each and every last one of you, the first degree in arts or in science, and admit you to the fellowship of educated persons.
Cheers, confetti. Extraordinary moment in the lives of these 1,563 undergraduates. They're seated here in Harvard Yard in the Tercentenary Theater by house, congratulating one another. There might be a champagne bottle out there somewhere, I'm not sure. And those who have received summas and been congratulated by President Rudenstein, by Harry Lewis, by Linda Wilson, all returning to their seats. You can see among them the first marshals that we interviewed, Kavita Kacholia and Philip Kaufman, the other first marshal. President Rudenstein waving to this class. He declared himself yesterday at baccalaureate a member of the class of 1998.
Well, anyone should be proud to do that. Incredibly talented, enormous energy. Seem inclined to savor this moment for quite a while.
Class of 1998, thank you. And be seated.
Now come the honorary degrees.
By virtue of authority delegated to me by the two governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The University Marshal will introduce the candidates.
Mr. President, we first welcome one of the world's leading scholars of democracy. Educated at the University of Washington and Yale, he was a wartime economist for the U.S. government before earning a Bronze Star in World War II. He joined the Yale faculty in 1946 and continues there as Sterling Professor Emeritus of Political Science. His 1953 book, Politics, Economics, and Welfare, written with Charles Edward Lindblom, is a landmark of contemporary political science. His 1961 examination of New Haven politics, Who Governs, won the Woodrow Wilson Award and was named by the Times Literary Supplement as one of the 100 most influential books since the war. He won a second Woodrow Wilson Award in 1990 for Democracy and Its Critics, twice a Guggenheim Fellow and a past president of the American Political Science Association. Our guest is a fellow of both the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the National Academy of Sciences, and a Cavaliere of the Republic of Italy. A leading figure in the so-called behavioral revolution in the study of politics, he has enriched political science through his theoretical exploration of pluralist democracy, through his careful empirical research, and through comparative studies of democracies around the world. I'm pleased to present Robert A. Dahl.
Robert Dahl, seated with his faculty escort behind him, Professor Susan Farr.
Masterful theorist and painstaking analyst, a sterling scholar, forging new conceptions of politics, pluralism, and power.
We now honor, Mr. President, one of the most deeply influential mathematicians of modern times. His work embraces a multiplicity of disciplines, and he is credited with having changed the landscape of such fields as topology, algebraic geometry, and number theory, while bringing these areas into closer interplay. His collected papers encompass some of this century's most profound and original mathematical ideas, conveyed in a manner renowned for its Cartesian clarity and precision. Since 1956, a professor at the Collège de France, where he is now emeritus honorary professor, he has also been a regular distinguished visitor to the Harvard Department of Mathematics, a member of the French, Dutch, Swedish, and American Academies of Sciences, and an honorary fellow of the Royal Society. He has received such prestigious international honors as the Balzan Prize, the Fields Medal, and the Steele Prize. An enthusiast of chess, skiing, and rock climbing, he is better known here in local circles for his prowess in another recreational domain. Several years ago, when the Harvard Math Department purchased a new ping pong table, it was dedicated to our guest in recognition, the inscription says, of his efforts in developing le tennis de table et les mathématiques à Harvard. Let us warmly welcome back to our university Jean-Pierre Serre.
His faculty escort behind him, Professor Raoul Bott.
The fellow with the beard and the dark glasses, a wonderful Hungarian mathematician at Harvard.
Nimble of mind and of hand, master of angles and curves, he has shaped the contours of mathematical thought with puissance and precision, elegance and élan.
So beautifully crafted citations there.
Jean-Pierre Serre.
Our next guest began her pioneering laboratory career as a food analyst for the Quaker Made Company, measuring the acidity of pickles and checking berries for mold. She went on to win a Nobel Prize for the discovery and application of principles underlying life-saving drug treatments for cancer and viral diseases. As a teenager, after her grandfather died of cancer, she resolved to help others avoid such suffering. In 1937, she was graduated with top honors from Hunter College. She then took a master's degree in chemistry at NYU as the only woman in her class. In 1944, in an era when the research lab was an almost exclusively male preserve, she was hired by Dr. George Hitchings of the Wellcome Research Laboratories. She wanted $50 a week, he recalled, and I thought she was worth it. In the ensuing decades, she and Hitchings created compounds to combat such ailments as leukemia, malaria, herpes, gout, and the rejection of transplanted organs. Her work paved the way for the development of AZT for the treatment of AIDS. Now scientist emerita and consultant with Glaxo Wellcome, she remains active with faculty appointments at both Duke and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Was the 1988 Nobel Prize the greatest reward of her career? No, she said. When you meet someone who has lived for 25 years with a kidney graft, there is your real reward. I am proud to introduce a most welcome guest, Gertrude B. Elion.
A wonderful lady.
Seated
Great.
with Professor Lynn Reed of the medical school.
And Gertrude Elion has a wonderful sense of humor, too.
Standing ovation here for Centenary Theater.
With science as her instrument and compassion her motive force, she detects in the workings of virus and cell the wellsprings of hope and life.
Very beautiful citation.
We now recognize the man widely considered the world's greatest living historian of Christian theology. He taught himself to read at age 2. Soon thereafter, and most fortunately, in view of the some 35 books he would write, he learned to type. Conversant with 7 languages besides English, he came to Concordia Theological Seminary in St. Louis at the age of 20. He emerged only 2 years later with a bachelor degree from the seminary, together with a PhD from the University of Chicago. He stands alone in his comprehensive mastery of both Western and Eastern Christianity, from the earliest centuries to the present time. The Christian tradition, his magisterial 5-volume chronicle of doctrine from the 1st century through the Second Vatican Council, is the definitive work on the subject. He has also written wisely on higher education and treated the works of Dante, Bach, and Goethe. After teaching at Valparaiso University, Concordia Seminary, and the University of Chicago, he embarked on a 35-year career at Yale, where he served as Dean of the Graduate School and for 24 years as the Sterling Professor of History. Among many honors, he has received the Jefferson Award from the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Presidential Medal from the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Scholarship, not partisanship or polemic, is our guest's mission. I don't have an active role in contemporary church debates, he has said. I am filing a minority report on behalf of the past. Mr. President, I present Yaroslav Pelikan.
It's accompanied by David Hall, sitting behind him to the right, Professor of History.
Pelikan is another very distinguished scholar with a great sense of humor.
Yes.
Scholarly master builder, you have created cathedrals of learning which give form and meaning to the mystery by which faith abides and is renewed.
Yaroslav Pelikan has written a great many books, including Jesus Through the Centuries, very popular books as well.
We know Mary through the centuries just recently.
Yes.
Our next guest, Mr. President, is one of America's most successful publishers and one of the most influential African Americans of our time. Founder of Ebony and Jet magazines, he started the Johnson Publishing Company in 1942 with a $500 loan secured by his mother's furniture. With our guest as publisher, chairman, and CEO, the company is today a major international enterprise, encompassing not only magazines, but also books, television productions, and beauty products. Born in Arkansas, he was raised in a town with no school for blacks past the 8th grade. He moved with his mother to Chicago to attend high school. After enduring the taunts directed at a country boy with a thick accent and homemade clothes, he became class president and graduated with honors. He had attended the University of Chicago and Northwestern and took a job as an office clerk at Supreme Liberty Life Insurance Company. Later, he would become its chairman and CEO. In his 20s, he conceived of a magazine that would resemble Reader's Digest, but appeal to a black audience. Prospective lenders scoffed at the idea, and magazine distributors resisted. Undeterred, our guest launched Negro Digest. Within 6 months, its circulation had reached 50,000. In 1945, he brought forward Ebony magazine, which went on to become the most important and widely read African-American periodical of our time. A noted philanthropist and humanitarian, he has held national and international service appointments under several presidents. In 1996, he received America's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. If my life has any meaning and color and truth, he concluded in his autobiography, Succeeding Against the Odds, it is because millions of Americans, black and white, have proved through me that the dream is still alive and well and working in America. It is a privilege to introduce John Harold Johnson.
Mr. Johnson has a faculty escort, Professor Henry Louis Gates, sitting behind him on the right side of your screen.
Amazing career.
Visionary publisher and courageous entrepreneur, inspiring readers, lifting voices, and finding in every wall a door.
Mr. President, we now honor one of the most revered teachers to have served on this university's faculty in the 20th century. From 1946 to 1978, he taught Soc Sci 2, Western Thought and Institutions, remembered by countless alumni as one of the formative intellectual experiences of their undergraduate years. He is a preeminent theorist and analyst of British politics and American federalism, whose prolific writings over more than 4 decades stand among the seminal works in these fields. They include his 1965 classic, Modern British Politics, as well as his most recent book, To Make a Nation, The Rediscovery of American Federalism, published in 1993. As a teacher and scholar, he is known for his relentlessly questioning mind, for his broad interdisciplinary outlook, and for his marriage of theory and history in the quest to illuminate political practice and thought. Educated at the University of Michigan, Oxford, and Harvard, he received the Bronze Star for his service in World War II. A past president of the American Political Science Association and winner of its Woodrow Wilson Award, he was also president of the British Politics Group, whose annual dissertation award bears his name. He served in addition as national chairman of Americans for Democratic Action, putting his vast knowledge at the service of political and social reform. It is an honor to introduce Harvard's Eaton Professor of the Science of Government Emeritus, Samuel Hutchison Beard.
Accompanied by Professor Peter Hall to our right, a most beloved professor. Sam Beer.
Spirited citizen of the City of Reason, legendary mentor to legions of students, bestriding the Atlantic to enlighten and enliven democracy's pursuit.
Beautifully poetic citations.
Mr. President, Robert Lowell called our next guest the most important Irish poet since Yeats. He himself might prefer to say a digger, though with a pen, and said of the spade of his Gaelic rural ancestors. Born on a farm in County Derry, Northern Ireland, he is known for verse that has excavated the emblematic bogs of both history and the human soul, juxtaposing the Iron Age with the present and the mythological political with the personal. I emerged from a hidden, buried life, he has said, and entered the heaven of education. His studies at Queen's University and St. Joseph's College, Belfast, led to teaching in Ireland, Britain, and America. He has published criticism, essays, translations, a verse drama, and 12 volumes of poetry. In 1995, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for works of lyrical beauty and ethical depth, which exalt everyday miracles and the living past. A cherished presence at Harvard since 1979, he served as Boylston Professor of Rhetoric and Oratory from 1984 until 1996, and he is now the Ralph Waldo Emerson Poet in Residence. Whether writing about his rural childhood as an Ulster Catholic, the archaeology of tribal hatred, or the deaths of his parents, he is alert to the transformative possibilities of poetry to console, educate, and improve while burning with a bright metaphoric and rhapsodic flame. Mr. President, we proudly honor Seamus Justin Heaney.
His faculty escort right behind is Helen Venler.
Seamus Heaney taught here for many years, poet in residence, professor.
Faithful to the claims of both art and conscience, his verse answers history's violence with the music of whatever happens and reminds us that the end of art is peace.
Born in the free city of Danzig, our next guest, Mr. President, received his A.B. from the College of William and Mary before coming to Harvard in 1949 to study for his Ph.D. in economics. And the rest is Harvard history. The author and editor of leading works on economic history and Japanese economic growth, he served as chairman of the Center of Japanese and Korean Studies at the University of California at Berkeley. After returning to Harvard as professor of economics in 1965, he chaired that department during one of the university's most difficult periods, and he helped to heal the wounds of that time. For more than a decade, he served with great distinction as Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, guiding the initiation of the core curriculum and leaving an indelible imprint on the larger academic life of the university. He was then called to service in the mid-1980s, both as a university professor and as the first sitting member of the faculty in a century to become a fellow of Harvard College. As a member of the corporation for 12 years, he helped 2 Harvard presidents steer the university from the threshold of its 350th year toward a new millennium. A fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, he was made a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor by the French government and was awarded the Order of the Sacred Treasure by the Emperor of Japan. His many other honors include the Encyclopedia Britannica Achievement in Life Award and the Clark Kerr Medal for service to higher education. Mr. President, we honor an exemplary academic leader, cherished friend and colleague, and a Harvard man for the ages, Henry Rosofsky.
Big escort is his longtime friend David Landis right behind.
Perhaps no more beloved person at Harvard, teacher, administrator. Some even called him the rabbi of the faculty for many years.
Economist, educator, Harvard citizen to the core, whose life and work embody the idea and ideals of the university.
When our final guest became President of Ireland, she placed a light in the kitchen window of her official residence, a traditional welcome home to returning Irish emigres. The light shone as well for the marginalized and underprivileged of Ireland and of the world. Born in County Mayo, Ireland, she was the only girl among her parents' 5 children. There was never a moment when it wasn't evident that I could do what I wanted just as much as my brothers, she has said. Educated at Trinity College, Dublin, and the Harvard Law School, she became the youngest professor in the history of Trinity College, the youngest member of the Irish Senate, and Ireland's first female head of state. As an activist lawyer and reformist legislator, she fought to expand opportunities for women and to affirm and defend the rights of the disadvantaged. She also emerged as a leading figure in the evolution of the law of the European Community. Persuaded to mount a long-shot bid for the Irish presidency, she said, following her election in 1990, that the women of Ireland, instead of rocking the cradle, have rocked the system. With energy and eloquence, she breathed a new life into what had been a largely ceremonial position and came to represent, in her phrase, a new and more pluralist Ireland. She worked to advance equality, opportunity, and the prospect for peace at home, while calling worldwide attention to suffering in Somalia, Rwanda, and beyond. In 1997, while concluding her 7-year term as president, she was named the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Calling her appointment one of the most important he would ever make, Secretary General Kofi Annan hailed her qualities of dynamism, credibility, and leadership. Former Irish Prime Minister John Bruton called our guest quite simply the best president the country ever had, declaring that she had brought pride and honor to her people. Today, it is our pride and honor to salute Mary Robinson.
Faculty escort behind is Professor Anthony Appia, and the crowd is on their feet. A standing ovation for Mary Robinson. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Everyone, of course, thinking of the great tragic trauma of Ireland.
Champion of human dignity, standard bearer for social justice, affirming the worth of each woman and man to her nation and to the world. In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members.
Degree candidates and their guests and all alumni are warmly invited to attend the afternoon session of Commencement Day exercises under the direction of the Harvard Alumni Association. The Alumni Parade will begin at 1:45 p.m. and the exercises will begin at 2:30. The commencement speakers will be Mary Robinson, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the President of Harvard University. The commencement choir director will lead us in the singing of the Harvard Commencement Hymn. Following the hymn, the Plummer Professor of Christian Morals will pronounce the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the Sheriff of Middlesex will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain seated until the President and Fellows and their guests have withdrawn from the platform.
Let us pray. We thank thee, Lord, that in the day of small things, our college was gathered out of the wilderness to be a light unto the nations, and that by thy grace, the light here kindled has shown unto the whole world. And now we pray that these who leave us for the service of that world may be the heralds of light and the bearers of love. Make us grateful for the blessings of this place, mindful of the sacrifice and needs of others, and ever eager to cherish the common good and the public weal. Nourish now within us a love of learning and a desire for peace, that by the labors of all who teach and learn and study here, we may be found acceptable stewards of an exceptional grace. This we pray in the name of all that is holy, all that is good, all that is God. Amen.
The meeting is adjourned.
The tumultuous cry and the pealing of bells, now beginning all over Cambridge in some 20 churches and in the towers of the buildings here, Memorial Church, Lowell House.
Lowell House in particular has this wonderful tintabulation of Russian bells from an ancient monastery.
From the Danilov Monastery in Moscow, yes.
And of course, in a certain sense, that celebrates in anticipation the new master of Lowell House, Diana Eck, take her position officially July 1.
That's true. I'll be looking at this from a different perspective next year. A tremendous celebration here today. It really has been. Some 6,000 degrees conferred and 6,000 people who will have this day etched in their hearts and in their memories forever.
As we mentioned earlier, all of them will head off to lunch in various regions at the houses or at locations connected with the different graduate schools. But next door, in the other part of the Harvard yard, by the famous Harvard statue, there'll be a spread put on by the 25th reunion class for about 15,000 people. They'll consume 2 tons of beef, 2 tons of poultry, 2 tons of vegetables, a ton of bacon, ham, sausage, and veal, about 1,500 pounds of salmon, 500 pounds of shrimp, 500 pounds of asparagus, 800 gallons of orange juice.
Dudley, this is astounding.
Gives you a notion.
But it is
The
true that the
magnitude
rites of
this.
incorporation are about to begin. People are leaving the Tercentenary Theater from every direction, but the faculty procession is still taking place in rather an orderly way right down the central aisle from the platform to the steps of Widener. You can see the faculty recessing here. 9 honorary degrees awarded, 3 magnificent speeches by the undergraduates, and the PhDs in their red robes retreating. They'll be going to Sanders Theater to receive their degrees, some of them from my hand today as in my last act as chair of the Committee on the Study of Religion. Joe Alsop once wrote, class of 1932, that this Harvard commencement is a sort of living summary of all the forces, public and private, civic and religious, which have promoted the rich and fruitful growth of education in America. And there's something in this celebration of education that is so enlivening and really provides, I think, what someone called a heaven of learning for those who have come here.
Symbolized, as we said at the outset, as you see the procession between lines of young students, of all their elders, the faculty, the administrators, the alumni.
The weather is held. There was a little bit of blusteriness and breeze during the commencement ceremonies. It's a little chillier than it's been in the past. Maybe we should conclude with William James's words that the real Harvard is the invisible Harvard, the souls of truth-seeking, independent women and men, many of whom we have seen enlivened by that spirit today.
And also from this line from the Harvard hymn, by these festival rites from the age that is past to the age that is waiting before.
Thank you, Dudley. It's been a pleasure to do this with you again.
Great pleasure for me, Diana.